Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our course, Intermediate Course 1. If you'd like to see the rest of the lessons in this course, download the jam tracks, and download the corresponding e-guide, which includes detailed charts and diagrams for each lesson, click the link on the screen or look in the description below. Welcome to Lesson 4. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you 5 new chords: the open G7, D7, and G5, and I'm also going to show you different voicings, which are just different ways to play a chord, different voicings of the Cadd9 and the Em7, different voicings than what you learned in the beginner courses. So I'm going to teach you 5 more chords, and again, these intermediate courses, I'm teaching you the chords I think you're going to run across the most often and be most useful to you. But if you really want to dive into more chords, check out our Chords and Chord Progressions 1. But these chords that I'm going to show you, the G7, D7, G5, Cadd9, and Em7, you'll run across all the time and get a lot of mileage out of them. And you're probably thinking we already covered a Cadd9 and an Em7 in the beginner courses, which we did. I'm just showing you another way to play those 2 chords, and that's called another voicing, because all chords have more than one way you can play them. And if you're playing a chord, for example, if I play 2 different versions of a Cadd9, both those chords have the same notes in them. It's just you've rearranged the way you've played them on the fretboard, the order of the notes a lot of times. Or for the Cadd9 and Em7, it's something really simple, which I'll talk about as we get to it. And the reason you need to care about other voicings is because they have a little bit different sound, and it just depends on the musical situation and what sounds best. You'll find one fits better in a certain musical situation than the other, and it just gives you more options to create more sounds. But the first chord we're going to start with is a G7, very common chord that you should definitely get down and learn. And here's a G7. And the notes that you're fretting is the same 2 notes in the 6th and 5th string as a regular G chord. It's just you're having to do it with 2 different fingers. Normally your regular G chord is with your 2nd and 1st finger on the 6th and 5th string. Now you're going to do it with your 3rd and 2nd finger so that you can reach your 1st finger back to a different note. So the way you would fret this is with your 3rd finger on the 6th string 3rd fret, your 2nd finger on the 5th string 2nd fret, and then reach all the way down towards the floor to the 1st string with your 1st finger in the 1st fret. And then all the rest of the strings are open, any that you're not fretting, and you strum through all the strings just like a regular G major chord. So that's a really common chord. You'll run across it all the time, get a lot of mileage out of it. The next one is another really common chord, and that's another 7 chord called a D7. So that sounds like this. And again, you're fretting 2 of the same notes that you fret with the regular D major, but you're having to do it with different fingers. So the way you fret this is with your 2nd finger, 3rd string, 2nd fret, which is a fretted note in the regular D major chord. It's just normally you're doing it with your 1st finger, but now you're doing it with your 2nd finger. Your 1st finger on the 2nd string, 1st fret, and your 3rd finger on the 1st string, 2nd fret. And again, that's a note that's in the regular D major chord. It's just normally you're doing it with your 2nd finger. Now you're doing it with your 3rd finger. And just like the regular D major chord, your strum starts on the root note, the lowest root note, which is the open 4th string. So you're not playing the 6th string or the 5th string, and you just have to be accurate not to hit that 5th string. Again, you can hit it a little bit, just like the regular D major chord, but if it's in there too much, it'll become muddy. So try to get your strumming accurate to start on that 4th string. So that's a D7, another really common useful chord. The next chord is really simple. It's a G5. So if you just hold a regular G major chord that you know, remove your 1st finger off the 5th string and block that string out now with the back of your 2nd finger, because that string's not in there, that note. So just block that out with the back of your 2nd finger and then just strum through all the strings like normal, just like a regular G major. So it's very similar to a regular G major. It's just you're taking this note out, which is that B note that was in the G major chord. So you're taking that out, meeting it out, but everything else stays the same. And that'll be a useful chord. A lot of people play G5 over a regular G major chord. which I'll show you a progression that uses it. In a lot of situations, you just have an option between either and what you like better. And then the next chord is a Cadd9, which you know the Cadd9 like this, which was similar to the G major shape that you hold. You're just moving your second and first finger down towards the floor, a string each. That's a Cadd9. You should know that pretty well now. The Cadd9, this version, which has a little Roman numeral 2 next to it, you're not going to see that in musical situations. We're only using that for our purposes to differentiate between the one that I taught you in the beginner course. Because if you see a Cadd9, you have an option to play either of these voicings. So just know that that little Roman numeral is just for our purposes for this course. So if you take that Cadd9 that you know and remove your fourth finger off the first string and let that string ring open as an open E, now you have the new version of the Cadd9. So it's still a Cadd9, it just has a little different sound because you're taking this note, which is in the first version I showed you, and now playing it open, so it's a lower note on top, so it just creates a different sound. So here's the one that you learned in the beginner course. Here's this one. So you can see the sound difference. So it's a really nice sounding voicing of that chord, and like I said, the musical situation you're in will determine which one sounds better and which is the better option to use. And then the E minor 7, it's going to be the exact same thing. So you learn this E minor 7 in the beginner course, just remove your fourth finger again off the first string, and this is still an E minor 7. So you can hear, here's the first version you learned with that higher note, here's this version. And again, the musical situation is going to determine which one works better or sounds better to your ears. So those are 5 new chords, really common, useful chords. And in the next 2 lessons, I'm going to show you progressions that use all the chords that we just went over in these last 2 lessons. So I'll show you how they sound really good together, different ways you can use them. But I just wanted to cover the chords first, and you can start using them anytime you want. You can take them and start coming up with your own progressions. But like I said, I'm going to show you progressions in the next 2 lessons that use these chords. So for practice, work on the chords like we've done with all the other chords like we did in the last lesson. Just hold the chord, strum through, check each string. If anything sounds muted or buzzing or anything weird, just adjust your fingers over and over until you can play it. And just start with 1 chord at a time until you have it down. And then once you have all the chords down, you can move on to the next lesson, and we'll keep moving forward.